surprised. Oh, I was like, this doesn't wiggle, and now it's wiggling again.
That is a weird sentence.
The chair is wiggling.
Okay, fine. Fine.
Yeah.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Stop it. Hey there, frackers. Stop.
What? It's not hard. Just get on with it.
Not.
Or it might be hard. You don't know.
Might be hard to just give it a wiggle.
Together.
I can't even get a sentence out now.
Together we have Richard and Muttley over there. Now let's continue.
Right. Hey there, frackers. I'm Dan, otherwise known as Twisted View, and again I have with me today
Richard.
And Pete.
We are going to be talking about the second episode of Battlestar Galactica, Water. And before we get into this, I have to admit that this is actually a re-recording of the original recording because we had some issues with sound and stuff. So we're doing it all again. Starting at the beginning like we did with the first time around we watched this. So as a general overview of the episode, thoughts and feelings to this episode, Rich?
I didn't like it as much as the first. I thought the first episode, which was called 33, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is all dependent on time and them jumping, avoiding the Cylons. I like that a lot more. This one's a bit more slower paced, a bit more, who done it, cat and mouse sort of thing. But it's okay. Not my favourite. I thought the miniseries was great. I thought episode 1 was good. This one slowed down a bit. And more concentration around Boomer and the sort of the guessing game that I guess is going to be the theme for the show about the Cylons. And yeah, there's some nice development with with Adama and President Laura Roslin.
Yep.
And then there's also some themes about limitation and how much time they've got left and resource. I suppose resource is the main thing, 'cause it's about water, right? But yeah, you felt the pressure building. They're still continuing the momentum of the squeeze on the humanity and how they're going to survive, and just interested to see where it's going to go. Yeah,
cool. Pete, thoughts and feelings again watching this again.
Yeah. I think this was one of those where I was so excited and not enamoured, but I really enjoyed 33 as an episode because it was one of those where I said that was an episode which I knew was in the series. I just didn't realise it was the first one. But this here is kind of echoing what you were saying. It's about the setting of themes that are going to be more prevalent throughout this season and the remaining of the 4 seasons. And I don't want to say too much because obviously you haven't seen it, but there's a lot of theme setting, continued character development. You're seeing a more nuance in the interactions of the crew. So you're not whereas before you were seeing not necessarily power struggles, but you're now starting to see the things around the paranoia, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought overall the episode was very enjoyable, and I think most of them will continue to follow that. I remember it being all mostly very enjoyable. But yeah, I just thought it started off in a way that made me, because with her being wet, and I was like, why is she wet? And then obviously it develops from that. Yep. So it kind of, you're always kind of second guessing what's going on. That made it a lot of fun. That's
a good segue actually into, so when we first watched this on the first go round, you were really confused by what was going on at the beginning.
Oh, massively, yeah. Right, so this is the one on Caprica that's just running from the rain. So she's been given a bomb and a uniform. Wait a minute. Are we saying that when one... Okay, she's giving me the impression she blacked out. She's regained consciousness, but woke up wet, and she's not even in rain. And it's like the other... Whatever happened to the other Cylon, and let's say has now transferred to her.
I think you're overthinking it, and you're not waiting to find out what happens.
Massively, and since I've since I've done my best to forget what happened by drinking loads of alcohol, I also was surprised. No, that was a joke. I mean, when she was away, it made total sense. But of course, you're going back to like you can see how what happened at the end of the episode. Obviously is making clear to you that at the beginning it was like, okay, she did this and she had amnesia, and it's because she's a Cylon, possibly, or a sleeper. So, the first time round, really, it threw me off. Really threw me off. And this time round, it made a lot more sense.
So I made the point earlier, and do you feel... so the point I made earlier was that you're thrown in as a viewer, and you have no idea what's going on, and you feel disorientated. In the same way, Boomer looks like she's disorientated. She doesn't know what's going on. So watching it through a second time, did you then sort of see what they were going for? And...
Yeah, no, completely. It really made sense, and it really made you feel... You really got to experience it from the character's point of view. Also, person playing Sharon, I think I said this the last time, really good actor. Like you really you can sort of sense the confusion. You can feel the sort of, the pain she's going through of like, what's going on? Am I a sleeper agent? I mean, she even mentions that at one point to Tyrrell. So yeah, it was good. I mean, you really, I like the introduction of this. Who's a Cylon, who's not. And I think with this episode, going specifically around her and her journey through the episode about trying to find the detonators, you really do get a sense of like what's at stake here now. If you are possibly, if you're possibly a Cylon,
Yep. Because you spoke about Chief Tyrrell, I'll do that as my first question. So, question to you, Rich, and then same to you, Pete. In terms of an ethical dilemma, because Chief Tyrrell's in a difficult position with what's going on with the bombs around the ship. So what would you do? Would you effectively side with your girlfriend, as he did in the episode, or would you have told Adama and Laura and the others what you actually knew, what she'd told you? Would you side with the way he went, or would you...
You're asking me personally, or what would?
I'm asking you what you'd do if you were in Tyrrell's position.
I think the stakes are too high. You have to tell Adama. I think you have to tell Adama.
You think he did the wrong thing?
His heart's in the right place, but he's too much of a people pleaser, and I know in the episode he came across very very. He was stating out all the reasons they need to be following the rules and guiding her and saying, look, this is the best thing to do. This is the best thing to do. So he was leaning towards that. He was leaning towards Dom, but I feel like obviously he's in love with Boomer, so he has to tell her and say, look, I'm going to protect you, but this is what we need to do. This is the right code of conduct. I just think he should have. I think he should have got straight up told Adama this is what's going on, but. It worked out in the end, right?
Yep.
It worked out in the end.
So, same question to you, Pete.
I'm having a dilemma of my own right now, because in one sense, helping your friend or your lover, whatever the way you want to look at it, is a very human thing to do, and is in denial of that. If you went with the rules and you went with that rigidity, that would be like, despite the fact you've known her for years, you've done all of the stuff that you wouldn't expect a robot be able to do in the supply closet. Going back to the miniseries, no, but it's true though. You've done all of that, and then to turn around and just suddenly turn around and go, no, the military is the way. I'm going to report her. That seems like a very unhuman thing to do, and especially when you're so, it's like love is blind, and all of that kind of stuff that you hear. So I would actually go, no, I wouldn't. Because the human part of me would say that, but yeah.
But to counter that, though, up until now, they've been, they've been playing hanky panky in the cupboard,
yeah, and
they weren't being chased by Cylons, and they hadn't lost 10 detonators or 8 detonators. So at the moment, before this, it was all just honeymoon period. This is now things are getting real, and their jobs need to kick in. they can't be thinking with their hearts; they've got to think with their minds.
True, but the thing is, though, Tyrrell and Boomer, like, they're not a part of the people in the know about the Cylon skin drops, like about the 12 models.
But
so
she does mention.
Even Laura talks about the fact that it's rumour, and the fact that half of the people believe the rumour, and even then they don't take it as truth. So you've got people, you're playing on the themes around paranoia and these people that they just don't know. So at the moment, while they're still trying to get it all together in their own heads, of course they're going to react to the human way, because think of the opposing consequence of, okay, we think, like she said that, she was confused, they then react in a very extreme way, which they would be presumed doing, they'd stick her in the brig or kill her. And then if it turned out that she wasn't, we know that, we as the viewers know that, but they don't. And that's the whole kind of fun of it, because you're sitting there going, yeah, we know that you're a Cylon, but they don't. And you're kind of almost just want to reach in and throttle them and be like, you're a skin job. But it's really difficult, but that's the beauty of the show, because it balances on the fact that you know who it is, but they don't, not necessarily.
Yeah.
So overall, I think it's a really good storyline, and I think I wrote down notes here around the paranoia overriding rational protocol.
Yes.
And
good point.
I think that's kind of very prevalent in this series as well, in this episode rather.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, funnily enough, they're talking about paranoia and stuff, but then also with her being paranoid and stuff in terms of what's going on, what she's doing, and the irony being, obviously, is that she's being paranoid about what's going on and how she might be set up, but actually she did it. Like, the bombs have gone off, and we see towards the end of the episode, and we're becoming more it's more prevalent that she is actually a sleeper Cylon agent. Which brings me on to the question over, which I think they do well in the episode, nature versus nurture. And I think that the whole so obviously I've got my notes here that I've got from last time, I think the sleeper agent is a great thematic way of showing the nature versus nurture argument. Her nature is to be the Cylon agent. Her nurture is her time in the military, time of humanity, doing all that stuff, and that's nurtured a certain thing in her. So as we saw towards the end when they're looking for and finding the water, with her, like I said, I can't see it, I can't see anything, that's the nature coming out, and then her putting her hand down to maybe let the bomb go off, because that's the Cylon program and telling her to do that. And I suppose in this case, if you were to come down on one side or the other, the nurturing element won, because she didn't do it in the end.
I love that scene. It was great. I thought the tension and the conflict, you could just feel it. You could really feel the sort of, the pain. She was, trying to tell them that she's found water. And yeah, I really liked it. But I mean, that's obviously the that version of Boomer on the ship.
Yep. As I think we established it, we're calling them. We have Galactica Boomer, and Caprica Boomer. So Galactica Boomer is obviously what we've seen more of. I think the one on Galactica, in Caprica, is I think she knows that she's a Cylon. Yeah, because before, I remember on original watching, you were sort of quite sure that the one on Caprica was also a sleeper agent.
Yeah, no, I'm dead set that she knows. The way she was speaking to Hilo, and it just, it sounds like it's a bit more of an agenda there. She's a bit more aware, and obviously with the scenes for the one up in Galactica, we spent most of the episode with Tyrrell trying to convince her that she wasn't one.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So moving on and away from Boomer for a moment to talk about Lee and his father, because one of the things that I noticed from the episode there, that there seems to be a form of PTSD, and then he asked his father about handling it, to which Adama's approach was, for want of a better word, be a man own
up,
it, carry on. So in that respect, do you agree with that sentiment, disagree with that sentiment? A question to you, Rich, and then also same question to you, Pete.
He's old school. I mean, he's going to say that, and I like it. I think it makes the show more serious. I like the fact that he's saying, look, just, there's enough problems going on. Deal with this. Don't whinge about it. That's the military way. And it shows you a side to Lee's a bit different, isn't he? He's like new generation. There's more to come from him, and I think he's got his character's going to be a lot more interesting to explore, because he's not just going to follow the military by the letter. I'd say about that.
Pete?
Yeah, I think I like your earlier point around nature versus nurture, but in this case, it's sort of, you look at the interaction between the two, what I call like the hierarchical, the male and the female being Adama and Roslin, almost that,
like the masculine and the feminine.
Exactly, and you see Adama kind of rebuke his son in a moment where he was clearly looking for answers, and you see Laura being a lot more emotionally receptive and kind of warm. Like, Adama has to be that way, because that is, like you said, it's the military way.
Yeah.
But this is a woman who is a teacher put into power, but she still doesn't take away her her awareness of other people emotionally speaking. And I think that she kind of
higher level of emotional intelligence overall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that Adama is not emotionally intelligent. I just think that he looks at it in a different colour.
He's a bit more process driven, isn't he? In terms of like
exactly, but I think that also allows him to make decisions in a way that Laura wouldn't be able to, or she would take longer to. Like for example, Laura would have taken time to bring down the Olympic carrier. If that had been Adama, it would have been bang, instant. Get rid of it. He saw it as a threat. He made that call, and that's like the establishment playing in. Whereas I think Laura just represents a different side of that.
Yeah, I would
for Lee, of course.
Yes.
In this example.
I would make the argument as well with that. You're right in that both Adama and Roslin would both come to the same outcome. It's just at what speed. Yeah, absolutely. Which actually brings us on to something that was brought up there, which is the difference between the military and the people, and I suppose where the politics has come in to it.
Yeah,
so
she does mention that as well.
Yeah, so this is again a sort of a round table question. What's your thoughts and feelings in terms of she's looking at the entire situation politically, and Adama's looking at it militarily, and how these two worlds we're beginning to see the beginnings of maybe a collision.
What are you asking me? How do they impact each other?
Yeah, I'm saying, I suppose the question that I'm going to ask here is, because we're not really into it yet, what could you foresee based on what you've seen from their early interactions?
I mean, okay, so the military so far, 2 episodes in and a miniseries, is all about survival. It's literally about survival. He was obviously talking about war, and she had to bring him back down and said the war's over.
We need to start making babies.
I mean, I think his view is short term at the moment, and hers is long term. And if she thinks that doing nothing means having a longer survival, she might go with that option, and there could be a conflict with him, because he based on military actions, he might be asking for the remaining survivors to do things they don't want to do. Yeah. And that's where there could be a problem. But I don't know, we'll see. I mean, we're looking at the main thing in this episode was water, right? Lack of water. Yeah. And I didn't feel that, President Roslin and her political agenda had any influence over them finding water. Really, Adama just went, we're going to find the water, and then she just accepted it.
It was more based around base needs.
She didn't start, saying, well, we're going to, rationing and telling people what they could or couldn't have didn't come into it. It was just focused on that. So I think the military lead's going to dominate for the first.
On that, and something as I think as an overall theme that we saw throughout the episode. So, quick question: have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
No,
Pete. So, very basic idea is this pyramid of all our needs as people, and it starts at the very bottom as the base needs, and the base needs are always like food and shelter. Yeah, and you can't have other needs. So the next layer up is like relationship needs and personal needs, and you can't go up to each level of need until you've fulfilled the previous need. So I think on that point that you're making here, this episode kind of shows us that they've now lost one of their most basic needs as human beings, which is water to survive. And so all the other things, the political steps, the military steps, the interrelationships have to be put to one side in order to fulfill that base need before we can discuss the other needs that they have.
Yep.
And I think the episode did a great job of showing us that in various different ways. The example that comes to me most is Colonel Ty with his bottle of whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
And he's measuring the fingers on it. And that's kind of foreshadowing the episode of... It just goes to show how much things are worth when you don't have them. Another great example of that is... Go on, Pete.
The cigarette.
Yeah, the cigarette, yeah.
Cigarette. Also, with Gaius Baltar and him joining the poker game, suddenly things material like his clothes. And earlier on in the episode, Rosalind made a comment, which I didn't catch the first time round, of she was like, this is my suit. This is one of 3 suits.
Got left, yeah.
That I'm going to have to wear for the rest of my life because there are no other suits, there are no other clothes. So suddenly his jacket is now a commodity. It's worth something. Well, not clothes that weren't worth something, but it's now worth something more.
Yep.
And I think that this is a new thing for them all, is that everything they have in that fleet is now everything they have. And so the value of things has now changed.
Yeah, I think there was a few points there with especially when he was talking about how much they needed, and he goes, per month, and he goes, no, per week.
Yes.
And that is just like an immediate massive thing there, where it's just like you go back to your
when he's talking about things in tons as well, and like the volumes.
You're like 86,000 tons of meat, and you're like, in space, where are you going to get meat? And it's kind of, and you think about everything
ships
that can, make babies. Yeah.
It's dark.
No, sorry, too dark. Too dark. Quick, put milk in it. No. So that kind of really, I think that was one of those points that just stood out so painfully. And then when you talk about also the military versus the political element of it, it's kind of got that like almost macro versus micro. Is that the military will view it as, what do we need? Water. Go out and get it. Yeah, but the politics of it will determine. Yeah, how is that moved around? Yeah, it's
who owns
like,
it? Yeah,
Adama sees Adama is like flying bird's eye view of the forest, and Rosalind is walking through it and going, okay, well, and she's seeing it it's the same place, but it's just from different viewpoints entirely. And I think that when you start talking about those numbers that they need per week to survive, is that the priorities get reorganised. That pyramid is a really great way of looking at it, because it's just suddenly like, okay, well, it's like because they started with like the pomp and the ceremony and stuff like that.
Yes,
that stuff's just I think it's just sort of like, oh, that's really nice. Boom, gone.
Which again, if you're looking at those needs and things like, suddenly that's about relationships and stuff and interactions, which is a good point, because at that point, as Adama had said earlier, Galactica was like 100% great at water supply, storing water, using the water. The other ships could supply from it. Everything's A-OK. So, funnily enough, those base needs are being met, so they can then get into the pomp and posture and those relationship needs. And then I find it interesting that then when things change and that shifts, suddenly that kind of goes out the window a little bit for a while, whilst they're then reconfiguring how do we deal with this. Another great thing that I liked about it was how it introduces or continues the mystery that's going on. Oh, well, how did this happen? Who's done it? And what's going on there? And I like how between Rosalind and Adama they had that scene talking about a good book and how she says she really likes a mystery.
Right, yeah.
The irony that they're in a mystery.
Yeah.
So I thought that was also good. So, any other thoughts, anything else that came out of that from your perspective, or anything else that you noticed, Rich?
I mean, yeah, since we were talking about Gaius Baltar giving the numbers and everything, I mean, I thought in this episode he came across a bit more likeable. I mean, there's still some funny scenes when he's, dreaming about being in that...
Back in his mindfuck palace.
Doctor.
Well, yes, exactly that. Yeah, but I was going to say back in his like little holiday home, where he's sort of watching Six take a
his horny holiday.
Holiday, yeah. But it's still funny when he drifts off and comes back. And then obviously the poker game that he has with Starbuck was great.
Sit in, Lieutenant.
Love it.
The Cuban seat got the chair.
They challenge each other there to see who's more dominant, and I love the fact that at the end, as you said last time, game meets game.
Full colours.
I'm so glad he had that little moment.
Thank you all.
And he offers her that olive branch, gives her that cigarette, and says, actually, you're a good challenge.
So the fact that he said that he's like is one of the last in the universe. I mean, that is. He's playing. He knows what he's doing there.
Yeah.
And it's clearly. Even Adama says, you outstrip us intellectually, massively. He points that out like clear as day. But I love the fact that Gaius, because at the very beginning you were so he's a rat, and he has that reaction even now in this episode. He continues to be this amazing character that gives you so many different
it's great.
Emotional kind. He's like, because he's funny, he is in episodes like this, he is almost a comedic bit that you need.
Yeah,
makes it just all worthwhile. Like when he just drifts off and he comes back, and we're like,
it's great.
That's great. But at the same time, you're like, you're a rat, you're a snivelling, and then it's sort of like you're looking at Starbuck going, it should be Lee, and then it's like, no, but Gaius is trying to get in there, and it's like, he's a frustrating character, but he brings. I think that's what you look at Game of Thrones. Everybody hated Joffrey, and I look at Gaius as another Joffrey type character. You want to hate him, and that's what makes him so good.
You need these shows to have a chaos character, and that's what they are. You put them in a scene, and you don't know which way it's going to go afterwards. Yep. You don't know what's going to happen. So
chaos character, I like it.
It's interesting. What I did like about Adama though, in that scene where they shut the door, I loved the fact that we've only had the mini series. This is the second episode in. He's had that one interaction with the guy on the what's it called, that base station where he was turned out to be a Cylon. Adama got trapped with the
with Leobin.
Got trapped with him, and he got some insight into sort of how they're doing, or how they're disguising themselves. But I love the fact that after they had that meeting, the first thing he said, without any confliction or any self-doubt, he went, "There's a Cylon on board," and he just it was almost like a captain's order. Like, I know this. You don't need to tell me this. You don't need to prove it to me. My gut tells me there is a Cylon here, and I love that because I just felt like it carried so much weight. Like, it wasn't even in question. It was just this is it. And I just think he's just such a great character. Like, you really believe he is top dog. He's do you know what I mean?
Well, like we said before, he be it the character or the actor, there's always gravitas whenever he's on screen. Like, anything and everything he says he could be ordering a chicken pie. He'll do it with gravitas.
He's great, so good, so yeah.
Excellent. Anything else or anything other thoughts that you had around the episode, Pete?
I wouldn't. Not really. I think, as I said, it's sort of this is one of those episodes which was, I think it was put it was written with the intent of building. I've not even looked at any of the titles of the next episodes. I'm genuinely trying to, there are things I'm obviously going to remember, but I'm enjoying the fact that I'm coming back to it and going, I remember what happens, but at the same time I'm remembering all those little patches in between. So no, I haven't got anything more to add. I thought it was a good episode, and bring on the next one.
So as we're going to be doing every time, let's move on then to the Death Note. So, I don't know if you can remember what you said from the last episode. I do have it noted down, but I'm going to ask you again, Rich. Of our core cast of characters, is there anyone that you think is not long for this world, should I say, rather, other than obviously you've mentioned Adama, you've mentioned Rosalind.
Yeah, from memory, I'd say those two. I'm pretty sure I said that Lee Adama would survive. And Starbuck would survive. I remember I said Starbuck would die.
Yeah, no, Starbucks
survive. I definitely said that a guy's Baltar was going to survive until maybe the last episode. But I'm pretty sure I said, like, Tyrrell was going to die. I'm pretty sure I said that.
Yeah, Tyrrell. And Billy is, I think, was being...
Oh, I did,
heavily,
yes.
heavily on your list.
Yes, Rosalind's
Guy.
Romeo. Yeah, Rosalind's Romeo.
Yeah. Especially after he had that moment where he was like...
I don't know anything about women. Yeah, you have lovely hair.
Anything about women. Excellent. Which brings us to bringing Pete back into the mix. The Gaius Baltar Ratometer. So, based on where he's been up till now, how do you feel? Where do you feel he's currently sitting on the Ratometer?
Where was he last time?
I think he sat steadily at an 8, if I remember.
I think I definitely, from watching that, I'd bring him down a peg to 7.
7? Okay, so you're sitting at a 7.
Less of a rat this time. Obviously,
actually being somewhat useful because he's
somewhat useful
with
the numbers and everything else. So still dangerous, but a bit more useful.
Although there is still a rattiness to it because the whole thing about the fact the Cylon detector doesn't exist, and rather than just admitting that it doesn't exist, he's trying to get around that.
And also negating Gator. So,
How could you do that to Gator?
Which
New Battlestar spin-off.
Negating Gator, yeah.
It's in Gate.
But it's we'll see how that plays out. I mean, obviously he does not want anyone, covering his tracks, but that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Okay. So you've hit you've brought him down a peg. So you said 7.
He definitely didn't get any worse.
Yeah.
I think he's got to be a 7. Yeah.
7. Pete, thoughts on that?
He's somewhere between a 7 and an 8 for me. I think even though he was funny in this episode, he was still quite ratty. I think his his intentions made him that way. I think the fact that he squirmed when he was going to be put under observation by having Star, that's definitely one. I don't like the fact that he was, trying it with Starbuck. No matter, he was definitely trying it.
Oh, yeah.
And he's being very wormy, and and anybody who can look at 6 in the nude and not bat an eyelid, man, that's definite rat material.
Okay, interestingly, where you guys sat from when we did the original watch of this episode, you've slightly shifted because you'd said 6 and you'd said 7, and we ended up on a 6.5. But based on...
I'm semi-hungover, he's not getting the benefit of the doubt this time.
Okay, so I think he's sitting on a 7. So, Gaius Baltar, currently 7 in terms of rat. And this leads us to the final part of the episode, which is the Cylon detection meter. Again, outside of, we know Boomer is a Cylon. Have you got any other thoughts? Anyone else that you think either might be a Cylon or might even be a sleeper agent?
From memory, who did I say last time? I think I said...
I don't actually have that noted here, so I can't remember.
I think I might have said... No, I'm going to go with... I'm just going to stick with what we've got. I'm not seeing anyone else.
No one else, no changes.
No.
It's all fine. Excellent. Well, then on that note, any other thoughts? Anything you want to end on, either of you?
Shaky cam. Shaky cam. What is up with the camera?
It's shaky.
It's like it's always moving.
Well, I thought you were talking about my camera then.
I mean, that can be a whole separate topic, but I mean, it's shaky cam.
There's a lot of shaky cam. So I have a bit of an explanation. It's because not just that they are...
They can't afford a gimbal?
Well, funnily enough, this ties in a little bit with... So we, very kindly, we've had a comment on one of our first videos where somebody's answered your question around the paper, Pete, for us. So very kindly, somebody's actually pointed out that the reason the edges have been cut off the paper and it's a more rectangular style is that the whole production was done on a shoestring budget and they were cutting corners everywhere. So as an inside joke for production, they were cutting the corners off the paper because they were cutting corners. As for the shaky cam, it also kind of helps with the fact that they're working to a shoestring budget, but they wanted to give the entire thing a very documentary type feel, which is also kind of like with the miniseries where you saw the guy walking around with the people going, let's show you these different elements of the Battlestar and that, and this is the museum. And they wanted that feel of like down on the ground level, down to earth. This is how
Yeah, I mean,
things going.
it very much feels like you're part of the crew listening into conversations.
Yeah.
Feels
Also, technology back then, they were filming this in 2003.
Yeah,
in
2003
like it's not as advanced as it is now. You look at all of the rigs where you can basically carry a camera like this and get no kind of like juddery, or it's all reels as well. It's all done on film. It's not done on.
It might have been digital still then.
Really?
Might be real though. You might be right with that. I think you're right in that, and I think it comes back to the budget question, because all this stuff did exist. It was just very expensive to utilise. So it's more sort of the Hollywood movie sets that would utilise a lot more of this stuff. So I'm thinking they probably didn't have the money in the budget.
Still works though.
Any more?
No, I think the only other thing I was going to say was back to the last time, whether it was in the recording that will never be. You made a mention. We were talking about the music, and I'm quite fascinated by the music that they use. And we were talking about Jimi Hendrix all along the Watchtower.
Yes,
and I think that this particular episode really highlighted the line around "there's too much confusion," because all the things that they're doing is because they're just so confused. The main person that we were looking at being Boomer being confused. So whenever I'm kind of watching the episodes, I often I'll start humming. I have the lyrics in my head, and I think that's the bit that I'm going to end on. It was too much confusion.
I think the last thing that I want to end on, just because you've just reminded me of it from the confusion and the bit at the start, which I mentioned last time, and I want to mention again, was I really, really enjoy where we open on Boomer and she's looking at herself and it's just water, but it's almost like she's looking at blood. Like there's blood-stained hands. And funnily enough, it's because she's been in the water tanks to plant the bombs, which in of itself could end up causing the loss of life. So I thought that was really good visual storytelling for us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end it on that. So say we all.
So say we all.